In a world where capturing moments is as easy as pressing a button, some influencers have unknowingly filmed their final moments, giving us a reality check about how unpredictable life is. Back in the early days of YouTube, there was this guy named Jacob, known as Whirlpool Hitman online. His channel was unlike anything you'd see today. Instead of flashy pranks or trending challenges, Jacob's videos had this one oddly fascinating theme: whirlpools. Real, wild whirlpools. So one day in 2013, Jacob and his friend decided to chase a massive whirlpool that had formed nearby. To anyone else, this would have screamed, "Stay back." But for Jacob, it was a thrill he couldn't resist. He held one camera in his hand and gave the other in his friend's hand, who recorded from above. Then, Jacob geared up and jumped right into the raging water. Now, here's the thing. Jacob wasn't careless or suicidal. He was young, adventurous, and probably a bit fearless. This wasn't his first whirlpool after all, and he thought he knew the risks. Jacob swirled around in the water, laughing, even throwing on a horse mask at one point. But you could sense that tension from his friend recording on the shore. "Maybe we should wrap it up," he called out. But Jacob, in his own style, just waved it off. He was here for one last perfect shot, and he wasn't leaving until he got it. But this whirlpool was different. Jacob's wetsuit kept him near the surface, but as he dove deeper, things quickly changed. The pressure started compressing his suit, and suddenly, he didn't have the lift he thought he did. He sank lower, and this time, the whirlpool wasn't letting go. The footage eventually made its way online with his family's blessing. They knew how much he loved what he did, and that his channel was his legacy. But that final dive showed how even the smallest misjudgment can turn a thrill into tragedy. In 2020, Dara Leaf, a man facing down his toughest battle, decided to document every step of his journey with stage 4 colon cancer. His first video, titled "My Cancer Journey," wasn't the typical clickbait. It was raw, heartfelt, and hauntingly real. This wasn't a story that would end with, "and he beat the odds." Stage 4. Colon cancer has a grim survival rate. Less than 15% make it past 5 years. Dara knew his time was limited, and rather than backing away, he leaned into it, sharing everything, every update, every piece of news he recorded for his family, friends, and anyone else fighting a similar battle. At first, Dara's videos showed him going through the initial treatments and the difficult choices that come with a diagnosis like his. The guy was fighting cancer, and he was cracking jokes along the way. Perhaps it was his way of facing the fear. He filmed from wherever he was, even on a bike ride once, trying to show everyone that he was still living, still pushing forward. But if you've ever had someone close to you fight cancer, you know how quickly things can take a turn. His 9th video was titled "Journey's End," and you could tell, even from the title, that things had shifted. Dara was in his bed, visibly weaker, his voice softer, each word a bit harder to say. And yet, he kept that humor alive. He even brought out his own urn, lifting it up and joking,
"It's actually quite light, so maybe I'm not in there just yet."
In the video, he announced what was likely his final message. His breath was labored, his organs failing, but he still managed to say goodbye in his own way. He thanked everyone, friends, family, supporters. Then, he looked right into the camera, and with a warmth that was purely his, said,
"Thanks for sticking with me through my journey. Thanks, for all those who have been part of my life. Good or bad, you take the good, take the bad, take the ugly. It's life, So, thank you."
Dara passed away just days after uploading that video. This next story is also about a very brave influencer who lost his life to cancer. In November 2020, Harrison Gills, a young Canadian teenager with an unstoppable spirit, received a devastating diagnosis: terminal cancer. Harrison, just 16 years old, learned he had a rare and aggressive form of cancer called rhabdomyosarcoma, with a massive tumor found in his prostate and more spots in his lungs. The news was crushing, but Harrison took a different path instead of letting despair swallow him. He faced his diagnosis head-on, choosing to make every day count. After rounds of chemotherapy and radiation, Harrison was in remission by February 2022. There was hope, and his family and friends were celebrating. But then, just 4 months later, came the heartbreaking news. His cancer was back, this time untreatable. Rather than retreating, Harrison went public, creating a TikTok account where he began sharing his journey with his 314,000 followers. The outpouring of support from his followers was immense. Many people donated so he could experience the things he once mentioned in his bucket list. With determination, he checked off every item, bringing his followers along for the ride and documenting each memory. However, after a few months, he came to know that chemotherapy had failed. The tumor had grown, spreading to his liver, and one of his lungs had filled with fluid. On March 21, 2023, he posted what would be his final message. In it, he thanked his followers for their unwavering support and left them with a request.
Pray for me and my family. It's been a great ride with you guys. Thank you for all the support throughout everything.
On March 30th, 2023, Harrison passed away peacefully with his family by his side. On August 23, 2021, Turkish TikToker Kubra Dogan climbed onto her cousin's rooftop in Istanbul to capture what would tragically become her final video. Being just 23 years old, Kubra had always been drawn to the creative and exhilarating world of social media. The footage showed her moving confidently on the rooftop, posing from different angles while her cousin recorded each shot. But then, Kubra decided to move to a lower, less stable section of the roof, stepping onto a gray plastic panel to get an even better angle. Helen, her cousin, seemed hesitant, casting a worried look toward the camera as Kubra positioned herself. But then, in a moment of horror, the panel beneath her gave way. In the video, Helen's camera captured the instant Kubra disappeared from view, falling 9 stories, an estimated 160 feet. Helen rushed to tell the family, who immediately called emergency services. Tragically, it was already too late. Kubra's injuries were too severe for any chance of survival. In the days that followed, her family, devastated by the loss, revealed they had repeatedly warned her about the dangers of taking such risks. But Kubra had been determined to keep pushing the limits of her content. On December 26, 2020, Felicia Pinky Williams, a teenage TikToker from Atlanta, was excited to celebrate the holiday season with friends. She believed she was heading to a chaperoned gathering, staying safe in an Airbnb. But what she didn't know was that the plans had changed, and what was meant to be a night of fun quickly turned tragic. In a hauntingly final TikTok video, Felicia danced in her hotel room at the Hyatt Regency, setting up her camera as she often did for her followers. Everything seemed normal, until suddenly she stopped dancing, startled by a noise at her door. In the clip, you can see the confusion on her face as she turns toward the disturbance. Moments later, someone entered the room, and out of nowhere, Felicia was shot and killed. Her final moments, unknowingly recorded, left a chilling silence for her family and the TikTok community. Investigators acted swiftly, and a teenage boy was arrested on charges of felony murder, aggravated assault, reckless conduct, and unlawful possession of a weapon. But for Felicia's family, the confusion and heartbreak only deepened as details began to emerge. They hadn't been informed about her death until nearly 8 hours later, and there were troubling questions about the venue change. Originally, Felicia was supposed to be at an Airbnb, but another parent had changed the plans to the hotel without informing her family. The circumstances surrounding Felicia's last moments have led her family to suspect foul play, especially given that the hotel room was booked under the other parent's name. The sudden shift in location, the events leading up to her death, and the eerie capture of her final moments on TikTok have left her family searching for answers, pleading with any witnesses to come forward. This next story is just heartbreaking. Inquisitor, known for his upbeat and kind personality, was a beloved TikToker who cosplayed as the character Ghost from Call of Duty. Unlike the stoic and mysterious game character, Inquisitor brought a warm and friendly vibe to his content, often using his platform to spread positive messages and support others. His followers loved him for his sincerity, and he genuinely seemed to want to make people's lives a little brighter. As his audience grew, Inquisitor hired a young editor to help with content creation. He was generous with compliments, often saying things like, "I love her work," or "I want to marry this editing style," meant just to appreciate her skills. But, unfortunately, those friendly words were taken the wrong way. Another TikToker, Tito is acting badly, twisted Inquisitor's words, spreading a false rumor that Inquisitor was grooming his editor, who was underage. The accusations quickly spread, turning his audience and the internet against him almost overnight. For weeks, Inquisitor stayed silent, devastated by the betrayal and backlash. Then, on October 9, 2023, he changed his profile bio to "I want to die." Later that night, he went live. The screen showed only an empty room and a glass door. His family eventually broke in, attempting CPR in the background. But by then, it was too late. Inquisitor had taken his own life just off camera. In the aftermath, leaked messages showed that the allegations were fabricated. Tito and Inquisitor's editor had plotted together to ruin him, taking his friendly words wildly out of context. When it all came out, the internet finally understood that this kind, positive creator was innocent. But the truth only surfaced after he was gone. Linda Rogers was a joyful 12-year-old, thrilled about competing in the 2018 All-Star National Cheerleading Championship in Dallas. It was February 23rd, and she couldn't contain her excitement, documenting every part of her preparation for the big day. Early that morning, she started recording videos, sharing each part of her routine. In her first video, Linda set up her room, saying she'd turn on a lamp instead of all the lights to keep things cozy. She was dressed in a red, sparkly cheer top and had started styling her hair, straightening it and adding a poof, all while chatting about her plans. Her happiness was so visible, you couldn't help but feel excited with her. Then came her third and final video. She recorded it as a time-lapse without sound, pacing in front of her mirror, fixing her hair, and making sure everything was perfect. But in a split second, the screen lit up. And then, darkness. A gas explosion had erupted in her home, tearing it apart and bringing most of it to the ground. Her family rushed Linda to the hospital, but tragically, she didn't survive. Later, her phone was recovered from the wreckage, miraculously unharmed. Her family watched her final videos, where she was happily preparing for the big day, completely unaware of how little of her life was left. Anvi Kaur, a 27-year-old travel influencer from Mumbai, tragically lost her life while trying to capture a stunning Instagram reel at the beautiful Coombe waterfall in Maharashtra's Raigadi district. She was there with 7 friends, all excited to film the breathtaking scenery and share their adventures online. But suddenly, everything changed. While filming, Anvi slipped and fell into a 300-foot gorge. Her friends immediately called for help, and a rescue mission was launched, involving the local police, Coast Guard, and other rescue teams. However, the conditions were tough. Heavy rain made the situation more dangerous, and large stones were falling down the gorge, making the rescue even harder. After a grueling 6-hour effort, they finally managed to pull Anvi out and rushed her to a nearby government hospital. Sadly, despite their best efforts, she didn't survive her injuries. Anvi had no idea that day would be the last time the world saw her, and this is just sad. Which of these stories did you find the most heartbreaking? Let us know in the comments section below.